Are you looking for more great content like you get here on the Conversations with Women in Sales podcast? I encourage you to check out the Sales Experts channel for 500 presentations from 150 global sales experts, all in one place. Always free, always fabulous. Don't miss another minute. Subscribe to the Sales Experts channel on Bright Talk at brighttalk.com.
Barb Giamanco helps innovative mid-size and enterprise companies build lead generation programs that improve sales results. To learn more, visit scs-connect.com.
You're listening to Women in Sales, a podcast dedicated to becoming the best resource in the world for female sales professionals. Here's your host, Barb Giamanco.
Today, we're going to be talking about creating opportunities for women in corporate leadership. And joining me today is Heather Combs. She's the Chief Revenue Officer for 3Pillar Global, an Inc. 5000 developer of client-facing web and mobile applications. Heather oversees marketing, business development, and operations for the nearly 1,000-person multinational company. She creates the revenue acceleration strategies that drive 3Pillar's continued double-digit growth. Heather has also been named one of Software Report's top female tech service leaders and Member of the Year by the Institute for Excellence in Sales. Heather, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Barb. I'm thrilled to be here.
We have some questions that we're going to talk about, but I'm going to ask you to tell me a little bit more about how you became Chief Revenue Officer for 3Pillar Global. Our topic is about getting more women into corporate leadership roles, and certainly we do have a gap on the sales side of the business. We don't see enough chief revenue officers who are women. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Absolutely. I am a little bit lucky, a lot blessed, and hopefully pretty hardworking. I was at the corporate executive board for about 13 years while that company went from the 400 employees that were there as it went public to about the 5,000 employees it was when I left. And of course, today it's been acquired by Gartner. While there, it was on a trajectory of such rapid growth. I had the awesome opportunity to move through account management, sales, new product development, and ultimately run one of the P&Ls. So I came out of that experience with a really well-rounded opportunity and toolkit of helping a company grow. And so when I left, I took on for about 5 years the role of working with organizations to accelerate their growth. I often did that as either a 1099 or as a W-2, but went in on very specific projects for either launching into a new market or opening a new sales strategy or changing a pricing model. And in that process, I met David DeWolf, the CEO and founder of 3Pillar Global. When their organization, when 3Pillar, where I am now, hit about $40 million, the private equity company that was backing the organization said, it's really time to just accelerate our growth a great deal. And the opportunity to step into an in-house role and take on the awesome responsibility of building a professional sales team, a go-to-market strategy, and really introduce the brand to the world in a new way has been my mandate over the last almost 3 years. And we've been doing it with a lot of fun.
Well, I love that story. And the big piece I took away from that, Heather, is that you intentionally sought out opportunities to develop a breadth of skill sets. Did I hear you correctly?
Absolutely. I think that to be in the C-suite, you really need to be a very well-rounded business leader who then probably has a passion for one of the skill sets.
Well, the great thing about that is we've talked about on this show often as I talk with different guests, women sometimes have a tendency to sit on the sidelines. They do awesome work, and sometimes they think that great work will just get them noticed. And I've had a few guests, including Lindsay Zwart, senior executive at Microsoft, who also talked about the fact that it was important to take on different stretch roles, seek them out for yourself. Don't wait for other people to present those opportunities to you. And I love that you've reinforced that. And that's what I want women to hear. I'm assuming then, Heather, that as part of that process, you sought out mentors.
I did. And I never shy away from a learning opportunity. still go to classes, conferences. Even when I'm working on behalf of the company at a conference, I never miss the chance to sit in on a terrific panel or to follow up with someone I learned from. I read somewhere between 60 and 75 books a year. I don't believe we stop growing or should to sit back and expect it to come to us somehow. Go out there and get it.
Well, I love that because people know that I'm fond of saying learners are earners, and I'm a learning junkie myself. So I love you brought up the books. I was just kind of thinking back and I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm on par to hit at least 70, 75 books before the end of this year. And it's interesting to me that I sometimes hear people saying, oh, I can't make time for that. And that's a discussion for a different day. But thank you for reinforcing that we do need to keep learning, developing, and growing. So that helps us roll right into the topic, which is talking about creating more opportunities for women in corporate leadership. So we know in 2019, more companies began increasing the number of women on their corporate boards. I've actually seen that for a couple of years. I feel like we still have a long way to go. Love that we're making progress. Why do you think this is such an important movement, Heather? And how can more companies take the steps needed to bring in those qualified women?
It's such a great question because you're absolutely right. We're making progress. This July, for the first time in history, every company in the S&P 500 had at least one female director. So we really are making some progress, but still only about 26% of leadership roles in companies are held by women. And because we're 50% of the population, 26% of the leadership roles is just not enough. I think that companies can be very purposeful in this space, and not just because it's the right thing to do from a moral perspective, but also from the fact that research is quite clear. Companies that are led by very diverse leadership teams are more profitable. So it's not just good for society, it's also just good for profitability and for good products to get into the market.
Your former employer, CEB, now Gartner, did a talent diversity study a couple of years ago, and they talked about that. They talked about the fact that diversity and inclusion, and specifically more women on your teams and in leadership positions, revenue is higher, profitability is higher, women tend to stay in their roles longer. We talked about this a little bit before we got started. I hear this a lot. Well, Barb, I don't know how to find chief revenue officers, or I don't know how to find qualified women for corporate leadership roles. What do you suggest that they do, Heather, if that's a little bit of a concern for companies who are looking for the right qualified candidates?
First of all, I think it's somewhat of a lazy response. Women are everywhere. Women outnumber men in college and in advanced degrees. Women are more than 50% of the entry-level workforce. So there are women and women who are well qualified absolutely everywhere. The first and easiest thing to do is to be purposeful. Go outside your standard network. Have your recruiting team bring a balanced slate of diverse candidates to you. Don't accept the easy answer of the one white male that was recommended to you from the last white male you hired. Look harder.
I love the suggestion that organizations need to get out there and look a little more intentionally. And gosh, it's just not hard. We have something called the internet today, and you can actually source people fairly quickly. Now, throughout your career, you've obviously seen the business culture evolving for women, and certainly with an organization like CEB, you probably saw a lot that's kind of changed through the years. What are the core things that you've seen evolving for women?
When I first started in sales, I was selling in a mostly male culture and selling to a mostly male buyer. I sold in the finance and legal space originally. So you can imagine the general counsel in the 90s was a pretty typical 60-something-year-old white male. And in that time, I heard a lot of honeys and sweeties and terms that minimized my role. In today's world, people don't speak like that. We've come so far in being more respectful in the workplace, in creating cultures and environments that women are comfortable in. I just read a great article yesterday about the fact that economists had long used hotel rooms in order to do interviews for candidates. And they've stopped that practice entirely because, as you might imagine, that's not comfortable for most female candidates. And so just changing the very location of an interview or a sales pitch or a meeting. So there are no more strip club sales meetings in today's world. So I really am seeing it evolve. I wouldn't say we've gotten to the furthest point we should get to, but it is getting much, much better.
I agree. And I started out in sales in tech, which was very male dominated. It's still pretty dominated. And one of the interviews I did recently, we talked a lot about the bro culture because it's important for the women coming out of school or maybe even in other roles inside organizations. I want them thinking about getting into a career in sales. It's one of the 3 goals for the podcast. So they need to see other people who are more like them, if you will, that they can relate to. And I agree. Definitely some things have changed. We're continuing to frame this conversation about making sure that businesses are broadening their horizons, looking at different ways and expanding how they can get in front of the women they want to bring into the business. What are some of the priorities that they need to be thinking about in order to make sure that their culture is not only welcoming, but supportive? So welcoming could be making sure you have more women on the team. So when somebody comes for interviews, right, they can see that there are more women. But what are some other things that they can do to be supportive? You mentioned the changing of the location for meetings, which I think is a great suggestion. What else?
Well, I think your first point is one of the most important and that we shouldn't underestimate. One of the proudest points about 3Pillar is that we have a 50-50 senior leadership team. So I'm one of 4 on the executive leadership team. And then at our strategic leadership team, so all of the vice presidents, we have 50% female leaders. And that's been by purposeful design. And what's wonderful is that those leaders, when they're out in the market, attract other female candidates who often say to us, this looks like a different place to work. They know that the culture is supporting those women that are here. And so I think that in and of itself, just being a place that looks like a culture and acts like a culture that respects women and all they bring to the table is a great first step. And then you'd be surprised, of course, in sales, that then attracts female buyers. So of course, at 3Pillar, we do software development, and there are more and more women in leadership roles, in the CTO role, in the CIO role, and they always express this awe and eagerness to work with us when they realize they can be buying from female engineers and working alongside women in technology themselves. So it's a win-win for both hiring and for sales.
Well, that's another excellent point in that when you're thinking about what your team looks like at all levels, but certainly leadership like we're talking about, I think sometimes companies forget, Heather, that their constituency, the customers they're serving, are diverse. I don't meet too many organizations who are only selling to one type of person, and they're selling to people in different cultures all over the world in most cases. So you're absolutely right. When the customer feels like there are other people that they can relate to in the organization that have some sort of connection or in some way they can relate to each other, that's good for the overall experience for the business. So that's a great point that you brought out there. You mentioned college-educated workforce in the beginning, and that to me is fascinating because I don't know the exact percentage, but I know it's slightly over 50% more women graduating out of college than men. And they often don't think about going into sales as a profession. So to your point, one thing I've tried to do with the podcast is interview women at all levels, and that includes new women coming into, say, account executive roles or sales development roles, as well as leaders like yourself who have been moving up the ladder. When we think about gender equality and the sales industry in particular, there's still a gap. So what are some of your suggestions or ideas or thoughts for encouraging women to consider a career in sales, which I think is personally pretty awesome, and I think you would agree with that?
I absolutely do. I think it's fantastic that women are breaking ground in every industry. This year there was a record number of women that entered Congress. The head of the New York Stock Exchange has a female president now. That there really are these places that had seemed open only to men before. Of course, in my space now in technology and in engineering, that's particularly true. But I think it's the evolution of where women were at first seen as leadership potential candidates, or where the biggest opportunities existed were in female associated industries, maybe fashion or beauty or in cooking, or things that seemed associated with the traditional female role. And today that's just not true. The culture is changing. And so what I would say to women is everything is open. Absolutely pursue STEM education, seek passionate, pursuits that are in math and science and engineering and technology. The direction the world is going, follow it if you love it. It's all available.
When I think back to my own growing up and coming into the corporate workspace, the opportunities were a little bit limited, or at least the idea about what was possible was a little bit limited. And you're so right, Heather, in that there's so many more things that we can take a look at. Now, I know the reasons why I got into sales and what I love about it. I'm curious, what do you love about sales? So if a young woman is approaching you and saying, Heather, I don't know if sales is right for me. What about selling do you love? What are some of the benefits? What would you say?
I am competitive by nature. I'm ambitious by nature. I was always an athlete of one kind or another. And I feel like what attracts me is that it is a constant pursuit of excellence. It is a lot of fun. No 2 days are ever the same. There are tremendous opportunities and then a lot of fun. And I'm not too shy about telling people, especially as I'm interviewing, so one of the best things about sales is you're rewarded for performance in a way that no other job does. I can make more money by simply working harder and getting better at my craft. And there just are not that many jobs that you can go into and really own your own success that way. Here's just a few of the reasons I love it. Today, with having both sales, marketing, and the operations, what I like is the puzzle of putting it all together and finding the best offer to the market that's possible.
Well, that's another great point, because it's all about problem solving, which is one of the things that I always loved about it too. And quite frankly, I was never a 9-to-5 gal. I mean, I did that in the beginning and then realized pretty quickly that wasn't my thing. I love the variety, as you said. The other important point that I wanted to call out is that the numbers in sales are the great equalizer, in my opinion. Right? If you're hitting your numbers, that in and of itself helps to really give you a level of respect and the ability to kind of command where you want to go in your career. Now, I do feel like women still kind of sit on the sidelines a little bit, Heather. So what advice would you offer to women who really do want to move up, but they're not really sure how to make their interest known, if you will? I worry sometimes that women feel like they're bragging, or they don't feel like they should tell the boss they want a promotion. The boss should just know. What do you recommend that women do in order to take control of their own career?
I think it's probably important to talk about both sides of that equation. Let's talk about the individual side and the side that women can do to help other women. On the individual side, the first thing I would say is don't be afraid to put your hat in the ring. You own your own career and you own your own opportunity to seek it, to aggressively go after it, and then to take that opportunity and make the most of it. Life is not fair. There is no great moment that everybody has exactly the same opportunity in front of them and somehow fairness comes down and picks the right person. It is absolutely on you to take control. Women tend to sit back and wait until either someone taps them on the shoulder or until they feel particularly confident in that position. But the truth is, no one's confident before they do something. So just get out there, absolutely go for it. Don't let the perceived barriers be reasons that you wouldn't pursue something. For example, travel. One of the big questions I get, I have 5 little girls and people say, how do you have a job that has travel? I say, well, it's not an obstacle I can't overcome. There are ways to work out the relationship in my household in order to manage the children. There's all kinds of services. I personally have an au pair who lives there, who can be in the house when my plane is delayed. There are methods to overcoming even the most difficult of the challenges you perceive. So don't let them hold you back before you've even tried.
I love that, because I knew you were a mom. I didn't know you were a mom of 5, so that's pretty impressive. and holding down the kind of job that you do. But also, it's great for you to share that experience, because that is one thing, Heather, that younger women have been asking me about. Well, I'm newly married. I'm thinking about kids. Is that going to get in the way of my career? And my answer is no. You may need to think about it and plan for it. And as you said, have the support and the resources. probably need to make sure you're working for the kind of company that supports that. I'd like to think all do, some don't.
I think that's absolutely right. Look for a culture that has lots of women because it will support women, and you can tell. But also the parenting responsibilities are shifting in a way that really allow this. I mean, more companies are now offering paternity leave or family leave and those kinds of benefits where if we support the moms and the dads, having children and having great careers does not have to be mutually exclusive.
Well, that's where I have to give a shout out to a local Atlanta company here, which is SalesLoft, because SalesLoft about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, looked at revamping their benefits. They were already a great company to work for, but they were thinking about retention, and they knew they had younger people coming into the workforce, specifically in sales, young men and women. And they thought a lot about that, and they actually adjusted their policies, family leave, diapers for a year, food delivery for the first 90 days. And this wasn't just for the women. This was for the young men as well. And I'm glad that you brought that up because it's a lot different now. You know, the younger guys, they get very involved. Not saying that the older generation didn't do that, but more and more I see the younger guys really pretty involved and asking for time off because they need to take care of something for, you know, the child or whatever. And I think that's pretty cool.
I love it. And around here, I happen to work in an office that is exceptionally bent this way. Our CEO has 7 children. A few other people on the leadership team have 4 or more. And so it's not unusual to see a child following their parent through the office on the way to an orthodontist appointment. We're pretty life integrated around here. And it's one of the things that brought me back in house and makes me just love the 3-pillar culture.
Well, that's also a great way to talk about work-life balance for just a moment, because that terminology always sort of bothered me a little bit. It was kind of like they're separate somehow, but they're not. We're living life, and work is an aspect, and your children and the soccer games and the school plays and whatever it might be. For me, it's cooking, my dog Lily, travel. I mean, we have life. And then we have these opportunities to kind of choose and prioritize where we spend our time. What have we not talked about with respect to creating more opportunities for women in leadership roles that we should?
I would go back to what we were saying earlier about what is the individual responsibility. And then a call to action to the other women in leadership. Make the time to put a hand out to changing this purposefully for the women who are coming up behind us. I know that very often I am the only woman in the room or was the only woman in the room through my career, and I can change that now. I am the hiring manager. I can dedicate my extra time to mentoring women or to sitting on panels or answering questions like this today about being a woman in leadership. We can do this for each other. When I was very young in my career, there were many women who hazed other women, is the way I think about it, but they made it difficult because they believed it had been difficult for them. And so somehow that was a bit of a rite of passage. I'm going to make it difficult for you. But I believe something very different today. Let's make it easier for women. Let's blaze the trail and let everyone walk a paved path that comes, behind us. So I just would ask for more women to think about it that way.
Everyone who knows me knows that I agree with that 1,000%. And ladies, it can be the little things that are big things. When you're on the conference stage, give a shout out to other women. If you're being asked to speak or be interviewed for a podcast, suggest other women. There are lots of ways that we can help each other. Inside an organization, if you know a woman does great work and she's a little bit quiet, make it your business to give her a leg up, right? Give her a hand and help her and make sure that she has a voice. And Heather, your point about the management side of it is really important as well. Whether you're a male or a female leader, it's important to make sure that you are giving everybody an opportunity to shine. In sales, we all know that sometimes those of us who are a little more extroverted can often take over conversations. And it's really important to make sure that we're getting the benefit of the diverse thinking from everybody on the team. So great suggestions there. As we're wrapping up the program then, I would love to have you tell us just briefly a little bit more about 3Pillar Global, who's an ideal client for your company, and how people can get connected with you.
Absolutely. Well, 3Pillar Global is, as you said at the beginning, a global organization that works with some of the biggest brands in the world to bring software products to light. So if you are talking to Alexa about your car insurance, you're probably talking to one of our products. If you are looking at your mobile app to book a bike at your favorite gym, like a SoulCycle type class, you're probably using one of our products. And certainly today, if you paid Park Mobile to put your car in its spot, those are the kinds of products we build and have brought to life. And so we exist to help companies really build the experiences that touch their customer. And we are very easy to get a hold of, both from a corporate opportunity through the website. And then me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm extremely available. Feel free to reach out. I like nothing more than to make new connections and to help myself and others figure out how to walk this journey together.
Well, very much you're a testament to walking your talk, because a good friend of ours, who I'm going to give him a shout out right now, Fred Diamond at the Institute for Excellence in Sales. You know, every person I talk with, especially the guys, they say, who are the women that you know that I should know and who I should interview? You're one of the women he recommended, and you didn't hesitate to say yes and get yourself signed up for an interview. So I really want to thank you for supporting the mission of what we're trying to do here, which is make sure that people know that there are many, many, many well-qualified women in levels in companies all across the globe. We want to encourage younger women to consider a role in sales, and the program is educational. So women like yourself are bringing your experience and expertise and helping to provide that guidance and mentorship. So thank you for actually walking your talk and being willing to come and talk with me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I'm excited about the mission you've undertaken. So thank you from the community of women who need more voices like yours.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's a passion project. Believe me, I really enjoy doing it, and it's my mission for as long as I can to keep giving a voice to women all over the world. So thank you, Heather, for joining me. And I want to thank everybody for listening to another episode of the Conversations with Women in Sales podcast. Today, I've been talking with Heather Combs. She's the Chief Revenue Officer at 3Pillar Global. As always, I appreciate you listening and joining us for the podcast. And if you know other women who should be interviewed, please reach out to me and let me know. In the meantime, happy selling.
You've been listening to Women in Sales. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.